Devin Alexander, and I make your favorite foods. If you're like me, dinner time is the highlight of your day. That's why I've come up with some solutions for satisfying the most common cravings. My first recipe today is spice-grilled London broil. Meat, you say? You probably thought meat was supposed to be bad for you. Well, that's not necessarily true. A lean cut of beef is actually leaner than some cuts of pork and even dark meat turkey. With my spice-grilled London broil, you'll save 285 calories and 30 grams of fat off traditional meats. Let's start with our London broil steak. Get this over here. Now I'm gonna make a rub for this, which is such a great alternative to putting a lot of fat or a cream sauce or gravy or something that has a lot of fat. If you can buy a rub at the store, that's totally fine too if you want to save a little time. Just make sure that the first ingredient isn't salt, because a lot of them do have salt and you don't want to eat that much sodium. So we're gonna start here with some paprika. And then you do want a little bit of salt in it, but again, you just want to make sure the first ingredient isn't salt because they're listed in the order. Okay, then we'll add some pepper, some brown sugar. Sometimes it gets stuck. A little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, some chili powder, some cayenne pepper, and then we just mix that up. I always like to use my hands. Again, this is just such a great thing to do, adds so much flavor, so easy. And you can eat this after you cook it. If you have the leftovers, you can turn it into deli meat, and it'll save you so much sodium off of traditional deli meats. That looks pretty mixed up. Then I'm just gonna put a teaspoon of olive oil over my roast. A teaspoon is plenty to just coat it enough that you lock in the juices and lock in the flavor, gives it a little bit of an oily taste, but it's not tons. Okay, rub that over, so that you're adding a lot of extra fat to a lean meat. Now, I'm gonna sprinkle the rub over. Make sure to cover all sides. You want it nice and spicy. Get a little more on the side, and then get all the extra off your cutting board. You don't want to cheat yourself out of any of it. And for the actual amounts we use, you can go to discoveryhealth.com where you'll find all sorts of tips and tricks as well as the recipes. Okay, just get my hands washed off here. Wonderful, almost ready. And then all we do is pop this in a bag and we're gonna grill it. And you'll notice this whole preparation, even if you make the rub by yourself, takes about maybe 5-10 minutes at most if you have to measure out the seasonings. In there. And then you just put this in the refrigerator for like 2 hours, or you can do it overnight, or in the morning before you go to work. Then you can come home and it's ready to go. Next, I'm gonna start working on my svelte scalloped potatoes, a much lighter version of scalloped potatoes. Let's get this. Spray this with butter-flavored spray. I'm not using olive oil spray here because I want that buttery flavor. Great. And then I'm gonna start peeling my potatoes. When I come back, I'm gonna get these scalloped potatoes well on their way, and we're gonna have a great meat and potato meal.
Oh.
Welcome back. I'm Devin Alexander. Today, I'm making a hearty meal that will satisfy that meat and potato craving that most of us have from time to time. I'm working on making a healthy twist to a decadent potato recipe. I've already peeled and sliced my potatoes for my svelte scalloped potatoes. Svelte because you'll stay much thinner. I'm gonna make a sauce for these. Grab some ingredients from the refrigerator. I need some fat-free milk, some cheddar cheese, and a little bit of light butter to give them that buttery, rich flavor that they always have. Wouldn't want to cheat you out of that. Okay, I'm going to start by making a sauce of the flour and milk. Just mix this with a fork. You can use a whisk for this too. Put the flour in there. And I'm just going to add enough milk here to combine the two and create a paste. The idea here is this is going to serve as a thickener, but you want to make sure you don't put all the milk in at once or you're going to have thick globs of flour in your sauce, and that is no good. This dish is one that my mother loves. My dad and I love all sorts of hot and spicy food, and my mom loves much more mellow French flavors. So this one's for her, but I don't do those quite as often. I'm going to turn my burner on here, keep it on a low heat, and then I'm just going to add my sauce to the pan, and then put in just 2 tablespoons of light butter. I use light butter again. You want that buttery flavor, but you don't want as much fat as full-fat butter. Now, I use light butter. It only has 5 or 6 grams of fat, depending on the brand, per tablespoon. So again, you don't want to use too much, but a couple tablespoons won't kill anyone. Okay, now I add some low-fat cheddar cheese. This is actually the base for how you make macaroni and cheese as well. Let me just get a spoon here to stir this all up. And the goal here is just to melt this and make this nice sauce. It doesn't even thicken yet. It'll thicken when you bake it in the oven. I'm just going to put a little salt in here. Potatoes seem to suck up salt, so you definitely have to have some in potato dishes, but whatever you do, don't use too much. That's looking pretty close. I think that's pretty good. Turn off my heat here. And I'm going to start actually layering the potatoes. So you just take this, you want to make it look pretty. The bottom layer isn't quite as important as the upper layers. Stick all these in here. Now, for those recipe specifics, you can always go to discoveryhealth.com where you'll find the information about the recipes, the fat content, all sorts of nutritional information, and fun tips and facts. Okay, get that all layered nicely. Then we add our onions, just about half of those. And if you want, you could add rosemary to this or any other kind of seasonings. I personally would add cayenne if I was making this for me, but not for my mom. There we go. A few more of those. Great. And then we add about 1/3 of the sauce. Just make sure it's well mixed together. Okay. All right. And then we do the next layer of potatoes. Again, just get them in there quickly. You've noticed, again, this dish, once you peel your potatoes, it only takes a few minutes to put together, which is so awesome when you're in a hurry. This does take about 1 hour and 20 minutes to bake. You do 1 hour while it's covered, and then another 20 minutes uncovered to get the nice brown top. A few more in there. All right, some more onions. Love onions. And then some more sauce. And then we just put our final layer of potatoes on here. And these you want to fan out nice and pretty. This is what the guests will be seeing. Alrighty, a couple more in here. This is not something I eat all the time, but every once in a while, that cheesiness and the butter. It was funny, they served this on an airplane when I was flying last week. And, oh, our milk over there. Okay. Get our lid on. And I was going to eat it. You know how you're on the plane and you're like, oh, I can totally eat that. I'm going to put this in the oven. There we go. Now, as I was saying, I was on the plane, and I know way too much about how fattening these things are, the real version. So the last thing in the world I was going to do was eat those things. Okay, got my London broil out. I'm going to go ahead and grill that up. I'm going to wait for my potatoes to be finished, and I'll see you back here right after the break. You often hear or read that you should order your food dry in restaurants and try to order fish and chicken with no dressing. While this is an option, it's not what's worked for me. Assuming you cook most of your meals and don't rely on eating out all the time, it's my opinion that it's best to enjoy the foods you really want in restaurants. Sure, you should still get the cream sauce on the side, but if I have a choice between a steak and chicken in a restaurant, you can bet I'm picking the steak. First off, I eat tons of chicken and fish at home because there I can make sure it's grilled dry. Plus, because chicken and fish are naturally drier than steak, chefs tend to overcompensate by adding more fat to the chicken or fish than they would to the steak. And veggies? Ugh, forget about it. It's not uncommon to find veggie burritos at Mexican restaurants that have almost as many calories and fat as the steak options do because they soak the vegetables in oil so they don't dry out. Welcome back. I'm Devin Alexander. Most of us crave a good meal of meat and potatoes every now and again. I know I do. So today we're making a London broil and scalloped potatoes, but a version that won't force you to spend 3 hours at the gym. Yay! I grilled the London broil while you were away for 5 minutes per side for medium rare, and then I put it on this plate and covered it with foil just to let it rest for 10 minutes. Now I'm going to slice it up. I always love the eating part. Okay, now you want to slice this very thinly. It keeps it more tender that way. Looks great. Okay, just try a little piece of this. So good. And remember, I said you could use this for deli meat. So if you do that, make sure you keep it whole until you're ready to use it, and then just slice it as you need it. All right, now I think that my scalloped potatoes might be done. So let's go check those out. Ah, they look wonderful. Okay, now we're moving on to my favorite part of every meal, dessert. Get out a frozen yogurt cake, chocolate cookie crunch. You can never go wrong with that. Let's get a little space over here. And I'm gonna crush up some cookies. We use that for the filling of this. Now this is a recipe that my family has been making forever, except when I was young, we used to use ice cream instead of frozen yogurt. So the substitution makes a huge difference. There you go, get a couple more in there. Put about 10 on the inside. I'm just gonna pound these. This makes a great birthday cake. I'm just gonna put cookie crumbs on the outside of it today. But if you want to use it for birthdays, it's a great option because then you don't have to have cake and ice cream. You feel like you have your cake and ice cream too, all in one. Okay, now we're just gonna put these, I already have one layer smoothed out here. I'm just gonna put the cookie crumbs on there. And of course, I have plenty of crumbs. Gotta love that. And yes, I do keep the cream inside the chocolate sandwich cookies. So you have to have a little bit of indulgence. But I use the reduced fat ones to cut down on that a little bit. Now we're moving on to the ice cream. Now it's really important when you do that. You want to have this other layer really frozen, so give that a little time after you put that in. Instead of using an ice cream scoop or something, you want to use a spoon more like this, so you can just take a layer off. And so you're almost just putting a flat layer on. And I usually take the ice cream out about 10 minutes in advance, but this one's a little soft, so it's great. Yeah, this is one of my dad's favorite cakes. I think he might be able to polish one off by himself if you let him, but, you know, he usually shared. Get a little more in here. And this is nice. It serves 12 people. Get a pretty good size serving. And some more. There we go. The whole thing. You can use about a half gallon of frozen yogurt, and then you just want to add like 4 extra cups in the end. So it's really easy to tell that way. It's 11 cups total. And then when I get to this point, I just try to use a hot spoon, run it under water to make it nice and hot, and then dry it off, and then smooth it out. Make a perfect top layer. By wetting the spoon, it helps you to be able to smooth it because then the hot surface melts the ice cream just the tiniest bit. And you can do this actually with any flavor that you want. It doesn't have to be vanilla. I'm actually often a chocolate fan. So I'm just gonna pop this back in my freezer along with the frozen yogurt. Okay. There we go. One is there. And when I come back, I'm gonna finish up that cake and dig in. If you're like me, when I'm told I can't or shouldn't, it just makes me want things even more. That's why I've developed today's hearty recipes. Now, my version of this traditional meat and potatoes meal is sure to satisfy any meat and potato craving you may have. It saves 361 calories and 38 grams of fat just on this plate. Steak and potatoes, right? That's what we all want. Now that I have that finished up, I'm gonna get back to my favorite part of every meal, the dessert. Before the break, I was working on my Cookie Crunch frozen yogurt cake. Get some things out here. I'm gonna bash up some more cookies. Now, you may remember I chopped up some cookies before. Those cookies were a little bit chunky on the inside because you want some chunky bites, but on the outside for decoration, we want them to be in a fine powder. So get those chopped up. And again, I'm using reduced fat sandwich cookies here. Perfect. Get my cake from the freezer, set nicely. Now this is a cake that you want to start well in advance. You probably start maybe a day in advance and just do it over time when you have a few minutes. You have a lot of freezing steps. You want to freeze it after a couple of the different things. Now the best way to get this apart, to run some water, hot water, on a towel, and then just squeeze it out, and it'll help you release the rim, because you don't want the cake to fall apart, and you don't want to melt the insides. And it just pulls away a little bit here once it gets hot. Try it on the other side. I think this will come off nicely now. It's getting close. Great. Yeah. And as I said, this is a great option for a birthday cake. Let me throw this in here. And you'd want to freeze it again at this point because it'll get a little soft on you and then you don't want your cookies to fall. And I have another one right here. As I was saying, it's great for a birthday cake because you feel like you've had cake and ice cream all in one step. Let's just make sure your hands are nice and dry. The cookies are going to stick to that instead of the cake. And then just sprinkle the crumbs over the top. There we go. All right, you know, they also have that light chocolate whip topping, which if you're a big chocolate lover, you can do that. You know, my dad's favorite on this one is using mint cookie ice cream, or mint cookie frozen yogurt, I should say, or a low-fat ice cream would work too. Okay. Get around there. And just put your hand like this, and then you can press it in really nicely. And it's fun. This is a great thing to have your kids do because it makes a big mess, and you know how kids love messes. There's also the option, you know, if you have kids, do this for their parties, and you can use like Teddy Grahams, put them all over the side. It looks really cute. And then you can use, just make sure you get a low-fat icing. You can pipe on there. You could actually write happy birthday on this. Put it over on my plate. A little bit of whipped topping on the top. Oh, this looks so good. I love it. A little more on there. Now, when you save 198 calories and 21 grams of fat over a traditional ice cream cake, how could you possibly go wrong? All right, now we're at the part I love. I get to eat everything. That. Nice fiery kick to that. And then the potatoes. The mild flavor to that is such a great compliment, and I love that gooey cheese. And now, the dessert. We all know I love to eat this. Try this. A little piece, about 1/12 of a cake is what you'd normally eat here. Run that under water is always helpful. Get it under hot water, then dry it off. Cut so wonderfully. Ha. Got that. Yum, I can't wait. Remember, just because food tastes great doesn't mean it can't be good for you. I'm Devin Alexander, and I'll see you next time.